We now return to the extent of my voice acting abilities. Monsieur Harbain, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I'm so sorry. I was wrong. You were right. I tricked you. You trusted me. I dragged you into this mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry. You really have no idea, Professor? About what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean. About what he was really constructing. Naturally. That machine was the embodiment of my hypothesis, of all my hopes and dreams. I had complete faith in it. Alright, in that case, I won't say any more. Now, sadly, the murder accusation against you still stands. So we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Oh, well, thank you for doing so much for me. Right. I am so sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo. Arriving late? Didn't you receive my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I'd arrive. Postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Ryuno, so it would be a surprise. Well, did it work? I was surprised, all right, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in the future. Susie's train was late into London Victoria this morning, you see. But we made the coachman really whip the horses hard, so she didn't miss the whole trial. I was watching from the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Having you at my side in court gives me the strength I need to win. So, I'm, delighted to see you, back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So, what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikotoba not protest? Let's save all the conversation for when we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for this special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. Sato-san was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. And any day. Any day. Okay. Yes, we'll save, because I forgot to at the end of this episode. Not a good thing to do. 3rd of October. Naruhodo's legal consultancy. Oh, this room. It's been too long. It hasn't changed in the slightest, though. And it's been some 6 months, hasn't it? It's a long time for things to stay so familiar. You've clearly never been to a bachelor pad before. I didn't know when you might return, and I wanted everything to be as you'd left it. Yes, we'll go with that. But it has been some 6 months, it's true. So is your father all right, Susie? What happened? My father? Yes, Professor Mikotoba. I mean, it was half a year ago, but that's why you went back to Japan. Because of the telegram you received saying he'd fallen ill with a very high fever for some unknown reason. That's right. So I was surprised to learn you'd come back so soon. Surprised, but happy. I think I wrote about it in my letter to you, that it was all a trick. My father is in fine health, and I'm obviously very relieved about that. Well, we're all delighted to have you back. It was quite by accident that I've been able to return to Europe, actually. It's because of a very grand conference called the International Forensic Science Symposium. The International Forensic That's the same symposium Lord Strongheart mentioned. Anyway, I've arrived safe and sound, and all that matters is that I'm here now. After all, I haven't yet fulfilled my promise to you, Iris. You must tell us everything that happened while you were back in Japan. Yes, of course, I shall. And there's one other thing. Something you wrote in your letter that particularly grabbed my attention. About you-know-who. About Kazuma. I know. I'll tell you all that I can. Go ahead. Back in Britain? When I first arrived back in Japan, I really thought I'd never be allowed to return to Britain. But curiously, after that awful trial at the Supreme Court, Father's mood changed entirely. The awful trial, oh yes, for the murder of Giselle Brett. Oh, you dressed as a man then, didn't you, Susie? Oh, well, yes. Since women are forbidden in the courtroom, I had no other choice. Wow, amazing. I wish I'd seen it. Don't you, Bruno? Yes, I suppose so. I want to play at being a lawyer now. I could wear a false mustache, maybe. I don't think any mustache could hide the fact that you're just 10 years old, Iris. There's something else I've been wanting to ask you, Miss Sasato. It's about the real reason why Professor Mikotoba summoned you back to Japan. You said in your letter it was something to do with that convict's loot we found in Mr. Natsume's lodgings. That's right, the very large dog collar we found with the bee emblem on it. It seems Mr. Natsume included a drawing of the collar in the report he submitted about his time in Britain. I understand that when Father saw the report, he turned as white as a sheet. How would that be, then? Father came to Britain himself, of course, to study. It was some time ago now, but he stayed for 6 years. I can only imagine that something must have happened during that time. But if he refuses to tell me what it is, then I intend to find the answers for myself. And I've decided that I, for one, won't keep any more secrets. Oh, Susie. That's a very meaningful look Susato-san's giving Iris there. About the book from earlier? Lord Strongheart mentioned something about that symposium, too. I think he said that investigative authorities from 40 different countries would attend. Yes, and from Japan. My father and Judge Jigoku have been invited. Judge Hell. It's something of an honor, I believe. Well, Professor Mikotoba is the leading expert in forensic medicine in our country, after all. But who's the other person you mentioned? A judge, did you say? Yes, His Excellency Judge Seishiro Jigoku. It's Jigoku. You've met him, Mr. Naruhodo. Last year, in the Supreme Court. You can't possibly have forgotten. That terrible trial of yours when you were accused of murder. Ah, yes, I try to think of that as a positive turning point in my life these days. Well, it was Judge Jigoku who presided over that trial. If I'm perfectly honest, I'd be happy never to see that man's face again in my life. Oh, well, anyway, as Father was invited to the symposium, he agreed to me returning to Britain, too. He won't actually arrive until next month, but, well, I couldn't wait. So I pleaded with him, and in the end he agreed to me going on ahead. Yes, about the symposium, it seems as though Lord Strongheart has put in an awful lot of work to make it happen. It's obviously very important. I believe it is, yes. As I understand it, Lord Strongheart organized the entire event himself. I think he's hoping that by achieving exceptional results, he'll get the job of Attorney General, the most senior position in the British justice system. He's hoping to use his power to create the world's finest policing institution. That's what Father said, anyway. Apparently it's Lord Strongheart's lifelong ambition. Does Professor Mikotoba know Lord Strongheart personally, then, I wonder? Actually, Lord Strongheart gave me a long speech all about this very subject only yesterday. But I sort of lost the will to live early on and didn't really listen to it much. I'm trying for you. Giselle Brett. The woman whose unforgivable actions ended in me being wrongly accused of a crime I didn't commit. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, Giselle Brett. That's a name I won't forget for as long as I live. The extraordinary thing is, though, it seems it's a name we should all forget. Sorry. Since the incident, our government's intelligence services have been investigating Miss Brett. It turns out that an Englishwoman by the name of Giselle Brett didn't actually exist. Didn't exist? But how can that be? It was a pseudonym. Her real name was Shin. And she wasn't a visiting student either. That was a front. Front? Who on earth was she then? Miss A. Shin. Her name is literally all our intelligence services have been able to ascertain about her. And apparently not even the first name. Nobody knows why or even how she came to be in Japan. It's a complete mystery. But that makes no sense. It's no easy task to be accepted as a foreign student anywhere. What could the woman have been up to? I'm afraid I really don't know. The only thing we can be sure of is that she had some business in our country that we don't yet understand. And now she's been killed, while all the questions surrounding her existence remain unanswered. Afraid so. A. Shin. Who on earth was she? And why do I feel as though I've heard that name before somewhere? Have we? After my friend Ray's trial, the reporter who actually killed Miss Brett said something very strange. I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on, in that visiting student's fate. Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know that the guy never made it to England, that he died on that steamship, and that he'll never... Never what? Obviously, I couldn't ask him to elaborate at the time, but later I visited the man in his prison cell and asked him what he was going to say about Kazuma-sama. And what did you learn? After he died on the voyage to Great Britain, his body should have been unladen at the port of Hong Kong and passed into the care of the consulate staff there. Should have been? Well, it turns out that his body never arrived. It just disappeared. What? Kazuma-sama's body vanished? Our government tried to cover the fact up, it seems. They erected a grave on the cliffs by our hometown. Except Kazuma-sama isn't there. Did Professor Mikotoba know about this? Yes, it would seem that he did. But he didn't tell me. They're still investigating what happened to Kazuma-sama's body as we speak. He's a zombie. I just don't believe it. And what is this acute feeling of apprehension I have all of a sudden? I'm sure this will never come up again. Thinking back now, some of the things that happened on the SS Burya were definitely strange. I mean, after he died, we never saw his body again, did we? Could it be? Could it be that he's actually still alive? Stop it, Mr. Naruhodo. It's too much to bear. But it's a total anime plot, so undoubtedly it's true. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Just thinking about the possibility pains me so very much. I mean, I've been going to that empty grave for God knows how long, and I feel stupid. Cast your mind back for a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. When Kazuma-sama was discovered, Mr. Sholmes was there, wasn't he? I mean, he's not really a reputable character in this game either. And he definitely examined the body. I remember it clearly. You're right. So if Kazuma hadn't actually been dead at all, it would mean that Mr. Sholmes had lied to us. There's no reason why he would possibly have done such a thing, other than all the other sketchy shit he's done before. I suppose that's true, yes. The idea he might still be alive somewhere, it wants to fill me with hope, but I can't let it, because if it turned out not to be true, then I'd be back at the bottom of that awful pit of despair again, Fear not, Susato. The fact that we had to mention this plot point possibility at all means that he is undoubtedly alive. I'm terrified of what that might do to me. Oh, Miss Susato. I know she's given the idea the thought it deserves. It's Susato-san we're talking about, after all. So I probably shouldn't push it now. We'll have to wait until it becomes a Deus Ex Machina point, probably in the last mission. Okay, now what? I don't know what else to do. Examine? You have water gently boiling on the stove, I see. It feels wrong somehow if I can't hear the water bubbling away. And we have plenty of logs. It's not like we have to worry about paying for gas. It's important to open the window for fresh air when the fire is burning, though. You can't keep it closed just because it's cold outside. It could be a matter of life and death. Avoiding the freezing winter air is a matter of life and death, too, if you ask me. Oh well. Perhaps a nice cup of tea will warm you up later. It's actually tea-making stuff. Oh, I'm so looking forward to making you some tea again, Mr. Naruhodo. Which you'd think I wouldn't like, given that I'm not keen on bitter flavors, but it is Susato-san's tea. And it's amazing what a little cake or something on the side can do. I would dearly love to serve you some sort of Japanese sweet alongside your matcha green tea. But I suppose that's simply not possible given how long we've been staying here in London. Well, I do like the little chocolates you put with my tea. They go wonderfully. Chocolates and green tea? Oh, Mr. Naruhodo, you would, wouldn't you? It gives me a warm glow inside for some reason. I don't know what the hell they're talking about. You see, I've been keeping my desk beautifully covered in papers as always. You really must tidy it all up, Mr. Naruhodo. No more excuses, especially around here. Everything's a fire death trap. But Mr. Sato, the way I see it, all these papers building up on my desk like this are a reminder of my wonderfully diverse daily life and my brash young character. I like to leave them as they are, so I never forget how lucky I am to have such varied experiences. In that case, you should definitely have a thorough tidy. Then you'll be able to see your papers building up all over again and feel that joy renewed. Still can't beat her in an argument, even though I'm the lawyer here. Still haven't filled in the eye of the Daruma yet. I see your Daruma still has only one eye filled in. Well, we agreed that it's something we'd do together, didn't we? We could do it right now if you like. I'd be happy with that, but was your wish fulfilled? I rather like the anticipation, I think, Mr. Naruhodo. No, I just... And breaking the meaningful tension in the air by doing that. Oh, what is that? I left your desk completely untouched, Mr. Sato, so it would be ready for you whenever you returned. It's beautifully clean. There isn't a speck of dust on it anywhere. You've been cleaning in my absence, Mr. Naruhodo. Whatever next? Well, I couldn't allow my great assistant's desk to sit there gathering dust, could I? It really is exactly as it was when I left. I'm so touched. But sadly, your desk is also exactly as it was, too. Well, that's how it should be, after all. Oh dear, I'd forgotten how that clean-cut smile can be so disarming. What? My theory is that he did what I do with the kitchen table, and, like, he kept her desk so he could use it, and then he put everything else on his desk. Iris, you were listening the whole time. It must be about a year ago now. I wrote a really long story based on some of my father's old notes. It's about one of Hurley's greatest exploits. I call it the Hound of the Baskervilles. But then Mr. Sholmes forbade you from publishing it, and put the manuscript somewhere nobody could get their hands on it. So nobody knows anything about it apart from Hurley and I. But for some reason, You knew the title of it, didn't you, Susie? Oh, it sounds so exciting. The Hound of the Baskervilles. I should love to read it. And you wouldn't tell me how you'd come to know it. Yes, but I made you a promise that I would explain one day, didn't I? I think it's time. Oh? Here we go. This whole episode is just going to be them talking. I'm only sorry I've had to keep it from you for so long, Iris. What's amazing is that they must have known they were making this game. See, I don't know if the Chronicles was released as a package intentionally, or because I have no idea when these games came out, when they were made. But making that major plot point in the first game and carrying it through to the end here, they knew they were going to make this game. It was completely by accident that I came to know the title of your manuscript, Iris. It was a short while before we left Japan. I was cleaning Father's study and I saw something on his writing desk. A large box of papers. There was a label affixed to the box that was written in English. It read, "The Hound of the Baskervilles." Nani? My Baskerville story? Of course, I had no idea what it was at the time, but Father came in and... Susato, what are you doing? Oh, Father. Did you look at those papers? Oh, I simply read the label, that's all. Well, put it out of your mind. Sorry? Forget that you ever saw it, and certainly don't tell anybody else about this. Do you understand? But what was Iris's manuscript doing in Japan? I have no idea. But when I heard Iris mention the word Baskerville that day, the title just slipped out. I would never have guessed that it was an unpublished account of one of Mr. Sholmes's exploits. When I returned to Japan, I asked Father to explain, but he refused to answer any of my questions, and there was no sign of the big box in his office. That's really all I know about it. I've no doubt that Father has a very good reason for being so secretive about it, but still, I made up my mind to explain myself to both of you. Well, thank you for being so honest, Susie. So, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm ready to start investigating if you are. I've committed every detail about the case to memory. And Iris has told me about the disturbing happenings at the Waxwork Museum as well. So, you're fully abreast of the situation already, Miss Susato. I expect nothing less, to be honest. I would think our first port of call should be to investigate this Mr. Drebber, the engineer responsible for building the elaborate machine that was used to effect this extraordinary trick. Yes, a conjurer of sorts, by the sound of it. Well known in the fields of science and magic. Then we need to go and arrest him. Well, yes. He must know the truth behind this case, so I agree we really do need to find the man. It sounds like it's a case of tracking someone down. Which is a job for the police, or a great detective. Are we supposed to guess who she might be thinking of? We don't have much time, so we need to get started straight away, I think. Good idea. Well, best of luck then. Oh, you're not coming today? I'm going to Brixton Road shortly for the herb market. The herb market? But let me know later how you got on, won't you? That was a little abrupt. The pull of the herb market must be strong. Alright. A new location was just added. The prison? I don't know. Oh, Mr. Sholmes' suite, just as it was when I left. Okay, well, I guess we're going there then. No? My eye is always drawn to this big metal chest that Mr. Sholmes and Iris use as a coffee table. Isn't it where Iris keeps her very important papers? Right next to the fire? It is. So you'd think that they'd treat it with more care, really. But only the other day I saw Mr. Sholmes kick it. Oh no. I suppose something must have been frustrating him. What a shame to mistreat the furniture, though. Was it damaged? The chest was fine, but Mr. Sholmes was doubled up on the floor for almost 10 minutes. Oh dear. That is a painful tale. Ah yes, Mr. Sholmes' curious collection of trinkets from the various mysteries he's solved. It's one of my favorite parts of this room, full of items with such exciting tales to tell. I do believe he's added to it since I last looked. Now there's a mysterious pince-nez, a mysterious little box, a mysterious horseshoe, a mysterious biscuit. I think that last one might just be one of Iris's unfinished snacks. Are we actually getting anything out of this, or... let's look. I finally managed to remember this behemoth's name. Great Oletoscope. I don't think it was here when I left for Japan, was it? Oh, is that right? Yes, because it was with the pawnbroker. Oh, of course. Oh, that's given me a wonderful idea. I could pawn everything that's on your desk. The office would be tidy at last. Don't even joke about it, Mrs. Sato. You are joking, aren't you? VR? Can't remember what we've already looked at here and what we haven't. This is Mr. Sholmes' famous violin. The one he found being sold for a song at a pawnbrokery. Now, what's it called again? A shoddy something? Oh yes, this wonderful instrument features in the adventures of Sherlock Holmes. It's a world-famous Stradivarius. What? Stradivarius, Mr. Naruhodo. Stragivlor... Are you even trying now? We'll come back to this another time, I think. I think the joke there is that it's very difficult to say that in Japanese. This blackboard is where Iris scribbles down her latest ideas, isn't it? Let's see. Oh, she seems to have drawn a lot of little stick figures all lined up. Look. Cheap apples at the market is what all of them say. What? The little figures can speak? All your questions would be answered if only you would read this month's Rant's magazine. So I'm the only one who can't make any sense of this. I don't know what I'm talking about there. Sneak a peek at her manuscript. If I remembered correctly, this large and imposing lump of iron is called a typewriter. To think that every single one of the adventures of Sherlock Holmes has blossomed from this very machine. Ah, it's such a dreamy thought. I actually had a go on it the other day. The metal bar that moves when you hit the keys got all tangled up somehow and made Iris angry. Mr. Naruhodo, you're ruining my dreamy thoughts. Please don't do that again. Now it made Susato-san angry as well. Alright, I think we can get out of here. Don't think we're meant to be here. But she's not... Like, usually down here, it tells you when she's found something of interest and we should be going there. Oh, wait a minute. I don't believe we've visited this place for some time. We haven't been here yet, have we? We haven't been here yet, have we? Okay, well... I guess we go here, because we're looking for the person who made the thing, right? I don't know, maybe we need to go to all of them. These guys are still staring at the broken window. I had no idea there were so many people in the world. I know what you mean. It's really packed here today. It feels as though it's taken us 2 hours just to make our way through the crowds to this point. Has it? I shut my brain down so I didn't really notice, to be honest. Gosh, I do wish I had your absence of mind sometimes, Mr. Naruhodo. You are? I had a feeling you lot would show your mugs before long. Oh, it's Inspector Gregson. I see you're hard at work as usual. Warm greetings to you. I do hope you've been keeping well since last we met, a few days ago. It's all off a ceremony. We just saw each other in court this morning. Not you, Sunshine, the gentlewoman so loyally at your side. Oh. Why, thank you, Inspector. How good of you to notice. He might be a bit rough around the edges, but he's still a proper English gentleman at heart, I suppose. As you've probably guessed, we're hoping to investigate the scene some more. Right, well, that's the young trainee's domain. Oi, get over here, Gina. She's clearly busy. She seems to be busy playing with a puppy. Probably giving it a traditional East End training. Gina? She's a police officer now? Amazing, isn't it? She's a good kid, actually. Heart's in the right place, anyway. She's got the detection bug, if you ask me. Yep, I think she'll follow in more footsteps nicely. What do you mean? I'm being transferred. It's time for me to say diddle-oo to London. Oh no, really? That's a bit sudden, isn't it? I had no idea. Where are you going to be posted then? We'll come see how you're getting along. Yeah, not likely. But you're welcome to try. If you don't mind a trip to France, that is. France? I'll be working in the Paris Police Prefecture. It should be right up my alley. But France? It's an entirely different country. I don't understand. Why would you be sent there? That's the way the adult world works, Sunshine. Now don't go poking your nose in where it's not wanted. I'm intended to take the kid with me when I go. What? You're taking Gina to Paris? Well, I can't leave her here in London. Who knows what who knows what become of her? What'd become of her? What would become of her? Jesus. I suppose he's worried she'd slip back into slipping her hands into people's pockets and purses. I don't think he's worried about her pickpocketing, Mr. Naruhodo. I think he's worried about the Reaper. Oh, of course. So that's playing on Inspector Gregson's mind too, is it? Anyway, I haven't mentioned any of this to Gina, so don't go blabbing, you hear? No, of course not. Well, I'm going to keep that diving diva safe and sound, until all this is over, at least. Oi, did you just call me a bloomin' diving diva again? So you heard that, did you? Oh, right, well. Any questions about the scene, you can put 'em to my capable detective diva here. All right, you heard the boss. Inspector Lestrade's in charge here now? I suppose I'd better keep my word and not mention anything about Paris. So, Gina, you got a new dog, have you? Isn't he great? Toby's his name. Oh, how delightful. He's absolutely adorable. Yes, the dog does seem lovely. But it's the not-so-lovely Inspector Gregson that's playing on my mind, to be honest. Gina, we were actually hoping that we could investigate the scene again. Yeah, alright. If it's around here, you can do what you like. Oh, that's alright, is it? I'm going to be playing with my new friend here. Ah, yes, Toby. The machine that exploded must be at the top of those stairs, I presume? I haven't actually seen it yet, so if you don't mind... sorry, you can't go up there, Suze. Oh? It's like I told Odo yesterday. Even I ain't allowed near that wreck. What's it called again? The reason we ain't supposed to touch it? The specially overly long name for scientific whatever. Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one. That's why only them lot are allowed to investigate it. What are they called again? The forensic something? The forensic investigation team. Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one, yeah. But isn't it the case that the special dispensation has been lifted? Well, I think so. Well, I don't really get it, to be truthful with you. You're supposed to get permission with some bigwig, or rather, as far as I know. What was his name again? Lord Strange something? I'm not sure that's quite right, Gina. I think you mean Lord Strongheart, perhaps. That's the one, yeah. Apparently, he's always watching the time or something. So without Lord Strongheart's express permission, we can't investigate on the stage. Well, now we know we need to go back to Lord Strongheart. It was great, weren't it? I had a right laugh. I had a right laugh. I had a right laugh. It was a new one on me, that. And no, being in court and not spending the whole time worrying I'm about to be found out. You did keep an awful lot of secrets in all your previous court appearances, didn't you? Yeah, and Odo's made things odd for me every single time and all. Just doing my job, Gina. But watching someone else get it in the neck is a lot of fun, actually. It was amazing when you showed that dodgy professor's dodgy experiment was a total fix. The dodgy professor, as you put it, Gina, is Mr. Naruhodo's client. Yes, I'm starting to wish he wasn't, though. It's a boss I feel sorry for. Sent off to do the impossible. What do you mean? He's supposed to arrest that other cove, ain't he? And in time for tomorrow and all. You know, the dodgy engineer. What's his name again? Mr. Drebber, you mean? Enoch Drebber? That's the one, yeah. So the police are looking for this mysterious man with the black monocle. I guess they would be. It's putting too much on the boss, if you ask me. He says it's giving him a gut ache. Oh dear. But I do wonder if that isn't actually from all the fried food. The engineer's whereabouts. So Scotland Yard are trying to track down Mr. Enoch Drebber. I wonder if they've had any luck. He's real funny looking. Got two eyes what don't match. Saw a glimpse of a picture of him earlier. I mean, I didn't actually pinch it or nothing. The old devil's got it. Sorry, who? And now, that scowling reaper what's always glugging down glasses of blood-red plonk. Ah, Lord Van Zeeks. He's always had it in for me, that cove. Don't know what he's always scowling about, mind. Probably would have been a pretty good boss, as it goes. She'd rather be the Reaper's apprentice than a detective's trainee. The way I see it, if the choice is between a chip-guzzling detective and a chalice-glugging demigod, you're equally badly off with both. No, I suppose you're right. I hadn't thought of it like that. Glad we've put that one to bed. Anyway, the point is, everyone at the yard's dead set on finding the fishy engineer. But there don't seem to be no clues to go on, so they're stuck. There's nothing that can lead us to Drebber at all. Let's talk about the dog. Where'd you find that little mutt then, Gina? Boy, don't be so flaming rude, Odo. Slight overreaction, don't you think? He ain't no mutt, alright? Toby's, how'd they put it? Oh yeah, a bona fide detective. Sorry? I'm giving him proper title and everything. It's Chief Inspector Toby to you. More senior than Inspector Gregson, is he? Oh, so he's a police dog, is he? Police recruit dogs now. I've heard that they're already being used officially in Germany as part of their city policing. They're used for chasing criminals and such like. They have a wonderful sense of smell, after all. I have a fairly good sense of smell myself, as it happens. I can tell undergarments that have been freshly laundered from undergarments that haven't. What? Oh, that's nothing compared to this little fella, Odo. This little fella, Odo? Right, oh, really? According to what the boss said, once Toby has got a good whiff of your drawers, he could chase that scent to the other side of the world. What? To the other side of the world? You mean he can swim? Mr. Naruhodo, I think you may have missed the point by rather a wide margin. I just can't believe this little dog has such an incredible skill. I'm telling you, Odo, There's gonna be more and more dogs doing their bit for the police in future. Yes, I agree. Robert, one of these days they'll be barking orders at us lot, not the other way around. Oh dear. Sorry, Gina, I don't think I agree with your vision quite that much. Well, anyway, whatever you think about that, Toby here's Britain's first police dog. I found him down the East End the other day. Someone had just chucked him out on the street. There you go. I knew she'd lifted him from somewhere. Oh, Gina, you're such a kind-hearted soul, aren't you? To children and to animals. Okay. Well, now what? Here's the scorching on the ground that you mentioned. Yes, and there's what's left of the green balloon's envelope. All clear evidence of the balloon that exploded on the day of the incident. Poor Professor Hairbrain. I do feel sorry for him that his dreams have been shattered like this. Someone's well and truly burst his bubble, as it were. Ah ha ha. Ah. Ouch. I'm a bad person. Okay. That. What a shame that the symbolic landmark of the Great Exhibition has been damaged like that. Yes, unfortunately the birdcage crashed in the most prominent position possible. It's the gods giving us a warning, if you ask me. Man must travel under his own steam and not cut corners with instantaneous kinesis. But imagine what might have happened if the birdcage had landed in a slightly different location. The death toll could have been far worse. So I think perhaps it was a blessing in disguise. Well, the gods are benevolent, obviously. I did say it was just a warning. Man must travel under his own steam, or next time bird cages will rain down on all of you. Your faith is much stronger than I realized. Well, how do you think I passed the entrance exam for Yume University? It wasn't by studying alone. Oh look, a flying balloon. I've never seen one in the flesh before. I can't understand how they can fly, and so high up as well. Oh, but think of the view, Mr. Naruhodo. You must be able to see for miles and miles. I do think of it, and it terrifies me. I mean, it would be certain death if you fell out. I'm sure they're perfectly safe except for the explodey bits. After all, they've been invented by some of the brightest minds in the world. Let's not forget that we know at least one has exploded. I'm sure there are other ways to fly. Can we actually look at this thing now, or what? The stage up there is where the experiment was set up. It's very high, isn't it? About 30 feet, I believe. Or 9 meters, if you prefer. Craning your neck to see up to it starts to hurt after a while, doesn't it? Yes, we need to get up there and look around properly. Although, if I'm honest, climbing all those stairs makes my chest hurt. Oh dear, I think perhaps you should exercise more, Mr. Naruhodo. Can we actually go up there? Boy, that's off limits up there. Try to sneak past me again, and I'll stuff your gob full of boss's fish and chips. Yes, please, I love fish and chips. I suppose we need special permission. Alright. Then shall we? Oh, who's that standing beside Lord Strongheart? And what kind of voice do I have to give them? I wonder. I've never seen her before. Ah, the young champion of the court. You had some success this morning, I understand. And you've thrown the entire government into disarray as a result. Oh? You mean because of Professor Hairbrain's experiment? Sham science being demonstrated at London's greatest exhibition. The country's been made to look foolish, and now politicians are scrambling to respond. Lord Van Zeeks is in Whitehall as we speak, giving an emergency briefing. Dear, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. None of this is your responsibility. The government is entirely to blame for having been taken in. A special dispensation that prevents investigation at the scene will be annulled later today. Once that happens, my forensic investigation team will move in and deal with that scrap metal in no time. It's scrap metal now, is it? Until later then, Lord Strongheart. She said, Doctor? Yes, thank you. A doctor of some kind. Who was that? That was Dr. Courtney Scythe, Scotland Yard's esteemed chief coroner. She is leading the forensic investigation team's handling of this case. She was just delivering her report about the victim, in fact. Oh, I see. About Mr. Hazman. Following the outcome of the trial earlier, I asked the coroner's office to reevaluate its findings. I don't have time to tell you what she concluded. If you want to know, you'll have to ask her directly. You can find her in the forensics laboratory. Right. And now, what were you here to see me about? I can give you 7 minutes and 39 seconds of my time. So he's not running quite so spectacularly late anymore. The forensic investigation team, why not? What exactly is the forensic investigation team that you mentioned before? The British Empire's police force must become the most exemplary in the world. For that to happen, it's imperative that we embrace forensic science and everything it has to offer. I first created the forensic investigation team a year ago now, unofficially of course, to pave the way. Goodness, a year ago? At next month's symposium, I intend to present the results of their work to the world. Once I do that, the House of Lords will be powerless to oppose the creation of a full-scale forensics division, and once that happens, the position of Attorney General will be mine. The criminals will suffer dearly. What do you mean? Too long those scoundrels have made a mockery of our legal system with false evidence and bribes. London's scum is about to be rounded up and burnt in the fires of hell. I intend to see to it personally. By creating the finest police force the world's ever known, to protect our honor and our future. With those eyes, he means every word. And Dr. Scythe is an extremely reliable coroner. When I officially establish the forensics division at Scotland Yard, she will run it as my right-hand woman. Now then, speaking of the symposium, Miss Mikotoba. Oh, yes, my lord. Your father should be on the high seas as we speak, making his way here to represent the Empire of Japan. Yes, that's right. I understand he will arrive at the beginning of next month. Are you acquainted, Lord Strongheart? With Professor Mikotoba, I mean. It was many years ago now, but yes. I remember Miss Dr. Mikotoba very well. Alright, tell me about it. If my memory serves, it was some 15 years ago now that your father came to Britain as a visiting student. It was the year I was born. So yes, 16 years ago in fact. She's... what? Mikotoba was a young practitioner of forensic science, and Jigoku accompanied him as a young promising judge. Punctiliousness and politeness of the Japanese at the time impressed us greatly. Not that I wish to imply impoliteness or carelessness on your part in any way. I didn't think that you were. Dr. Mikotoba studied forensics at one of London's large hospitals. St. Sinner's, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Scythe was also there then, as it happens. Then Dr. Scythe knows my father, does she? She was a young medical assistant at the time, so I doubt their paths crossed regularly. But I've no doubt they knew each other superficially. After all, Dr. Mikotoba was here studying his subject for some 6 years in total. 6 years? That's a long time to be studying abroad, isn't it? I lived with my grandmother in those years. So he left his newly born daughter behind and went overseas for 6 whole years? It was a rather turbulent time at home. Oh. Perhaps Father wanted a reason to get away. What do you mean? Why? We only have 7 minutes here. Why are we talking about this now? Well, clearly something was going on at the time. I wanted to ask you about Lord Van Zeeks, actually. Actually, no, we're here to ask if we can go look at the damned... I heard that his older brother was killed some years ago by a mass murderer known as the Professor, who targeted nobles and royalty. Is that right? You Japanese are a thorough lot. You've done your research well. Yes. And you could say it was that very incident that gave rise to the Reaper. But why? When his brother, Clint Van Zeeks, was murdered, just after young Barrack had graduated from the University of London and become a prosecutor. When obvious criminals who managed to evade conviction in court started disappearing, rumors quickly spread throughout the capital. Londoners started to say that wherever Barrack Van Zeeks went, the ghost of his dead brother wasn't far behind. Oh my word. So, Lord Van Zeeks isn't the Reaper, it's the ghost of his brother? Ever since that time, he became a very aloof figure in London's legal circles. Oh, yes, Lord Strongheart. Go ahead. It's about Professor Harebrain's experimental machine. We'd like your permission to examine the remains, if possible. Are you well versed in science, then? Not in the slightest. In fact, you could say I was barely aware of the subject at all until recently. Well, the special dispensation legally preventing investigation of the machine is currently being annulled. Within a few hours, Dr. Scythe's team of forensic experts will begin their own investigation. But I suppose until then, there's no harm in you looking at the wreckage, as long as you touch nothing. Thank you! We'll definitely not pick up clues. Being able to look at it is better than nothing. And I'll be able to see it too! Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me now, I'm afraid. My next engagement calls. Right. We are extremely sorry to have troubled you when you are so busy, my lord. I have important matters to attend to in preparation for the symposium, you understand? Right. And so we go back. A new location was added. The forensic lab. But surely we need to go here first. Let's go here first. Holy shit, it's been an hour already. We'll do this next time.